Back in 2001, when the community gave us the vote of confidence to proceed with building a new hospital in Pullman, I'm not sure that any of us could have appreciated what was going to actually develop as time passed, and we found ourselves so focused on construction documents and engineering design and trying to balance budgets. And if we'd been able to glimpse forward with some sense of what could be created and come into existence as a result of this work, it probably would have been additional inspiration for us. It certainly would have provided us a broader perspective of what could be possible and how the community would be benefited and strengthened by the time and energy and effort that we put in to make Pullman Regional Hospital a reality.
When I worked at the Pullman Memorial Hospital, it was a small hospital, of course, and I knew pretty much every nook and cranny of the hospital then.
Yeah, I worked in the old emergency department for a few months when I first moved to town.
So I was present when we had the change from the old facility with a wonderful on-campus parking to the much nicer facility, but the inconvenient parking.
When I first started working for the organization, we were in an old, unremodeled brick building. There were no sinks in the rooms, no bathrooms except in a few rooms. It was pretty primitive as far as, the standards for today are. There was one nurse who functioned also as the secretary to register the patient, who would also be responsible for doing a lot of the venipunctures and starting IV lines.
Because we were 2 beds in the old building and 1 nurse, we were trying to plan to be a bigger unit, but it was kind of hard to plan.
And in November of 2001, we passed.
Well, yeah.
Gosh, 68 or 69% of something.
The day the bond passed, and we began this process of building a new hospital.
It wasn't just once, it took several times to get this passed. But with all of those things and all the people working towards it, it produced this facility.
Zillions of hours and committees and times, all of that effort by every staff member leading us into this beautiful building.
And there was a lot of excitement around moving into the new hospital. Of course, all the build-up in terms of building and taking tours, hard hat tours. And
I remember Collins Warman, they were architects, and one of the first things they started with us on, they had all the leadership. We were down in the old multi-purpose room. And they were doing all these affinity diagrams, just bubble diagrams. We're trying to say, what needs to be next to what?
Yeah.
And how do we make this be an efficient, effective building for people to operate in? And then, we got through all the stuff with the architects and the engineers, and I got so tired of seeing the flimsy architect paper. We're drawing another version of some part of the hospital.
The places where managers involved their staff to help design the workflow and how they wanted the department to work, those departments work really good. We had to own everything. We had to really not just rely on the architects to do what we were asking them to do.
One of the funnest ones, though, was a trip that you and me and Jeannie and Bill Gaskins and Denise Stannard and Pat Westing, we took a road trip to Colorado. Looking at different hospitals.
We had a moving expert that came in and actually helped us get ready for the move and told us helped us try to figure out what types of things we needed to do and how we needed to prepare.
This is not all the the documents, but a good amount of the documents that John Schnebley gave us and that we created with his help, that goes from the calendar of events down to our education and orientation, to the task schedules and our public events, the physical move. It was our Bible.
It was my responsibility to keep in touch with the old hospital, and I was speaking on the phone, finding out where the patients were, when they were coming.
I actually had the good fortune of having the very last patient that was treated at Pullman Memorial Hospital. We were all very excited to be standing behind the very last patients and then get in our cars and rush over to the new hospital.
I was the first physician on duty in the new facility and had the privilege and honor of being the one to see the first patient to visit our new emergency department here at Pullman Regional Hospital.
When I think about moving into the new hospital, I just remember the first time I came in and I was just awestruck. I just felt like a kid in a candy store.
And I remember looking down the big long hall that we can see now, and you could see Scott and people standing out in the hall, and they announced Pullman Regional Hospital is now open for business.
You know, I kind of thought of it like moving into your home.
Yeah.
And 2 or 3 months, you got boxes put away, and you kind of said, okay, we're done. Now what do? We got to keep moving forward. And boy, people were not happy with me.
And I can remember poor Scott, he just really took it. Everybody, he was like moving on to the next initiative, and I remember as leaders, we were like, whoa, we cannot do anymore.
That first year was really hard. Just getting the staff all used to how things functioned, and with the high volume.
Remember, we were so busy. It just, everybody was working as hard as they could.
And the old adage that if you build it, they will come. Well, we built it and they came.
Clinical staff especially was just grappling with, this is totally different than anything we've ever done. How can you expect us to feel comfortable?
And you'd get lost because you didn't know what unit you were on.
You know, I remember some of the staff, some of their biggest frustrations that first day was they didn't know any phone numbers. You know, people who had worked over there, you knew all the phone numbers. I can still remember my phone number over there, but you came over here and it was all brand new. And we didn't do overhead paging.
We learned really quickly. All the extensions had changed from the old hospital to the new hospital, and so it wasn't sort of seamless being able to contact med-surg or surgery or ICU.
One of our bigger challenges to figure out how are we going to communicate with each other without overhead paging.
And what I learned, and we even shared this with people who would ask us later on, I said, give yourself a year.
Yep.
Once you move in, you got to go through all the cycles of patient activity that you might experience so that you know how to deal with it before everybody's going to feel like, okay, this works.
Yep.
We know what to expect.
It was a very fun experience watching our hospital evolve.
Unbelievable to look back and think that we only moved in 10 years ago.
It's been a wild and interesting ride ever since we got here.
I'm very thankful for this hospital. It's amazing. I'm so very proud of what we are.
We got to make sure it works long term.
And it is.
And it is.
I love this place, and this was the greatest thing that could have ever been built here in Pullman.
For fruition, can you, yeah.
The fruition.
Okay.
That's not what you said on our site visit trip.
What did I say?
You said Bill was the best looking one.
Oh, he's a good looking man. I remember when we left Cheyenne, we made a stop to get fuel, and my roommate, Bill, got into the van with a 64-ounce soda, which he drank. And
We're driving to Steamboat Springs.
Steamboat Springs, and we were in the mountains, in the snow. You couldn't see the road. The road was covered with snow.
I was driving.
You were driving, and I was sitting next to Bill, and he was in pain. And the van would go through a dip, and he would groan from the differences in pressure. And I finally said, Jeannie, we have got to stop. And we haven't seen a car in an hour. And there's no one on the road, there's no one around. And so Jeannie pulled off. There was a road coming in from the side, and she pulled in and dropped Bill off. We then pulled ahead, and 2 cars started coming around the corner towards us. And Jeannie honked, and I don't know what happened, but in my mind, Bill turned around to see what she was honking about. But the only 2 cars we'd seen in an hour were right there when there was 64 ounces that were trying to get out. And so
Oh my God.
there was a lot of pressure.
Can't stop that flow.
No,
There was a lot of yellow snow.
I think once you let go of 64 ounces, there's no turning that off.